Samantha had always dreamed of finding a peaceful place to call home. After years of enduring the relentless noise and chaos of city life, she finally found what she was looking for: a cozy suburban house in a quiet neighborhood in Overland Park, Kansas. It wasn't extravagant, but it was hers a fresh start. The first few days were spent unpacking, arranging furniture, and familiarizing herself with her new surroundings. The neighbors seemed pleasant enough, most waving when they saw her outside. Most, except for one, Margaret Hollis, a woman from 3 houses down. Samantha noticed her almost immediately. Late 50s, short blonde bob, the kind of person who always seemed to be watching. Their first interaction wasn't exactly welcoming. Samantha was carrying groceries when Margaret walked by, her small terrier pulling at its leash. "You new here?" Margaret asked, eyes scanning Samantha up and down. "Yeah, just moved in," Samantha replied, setting her bags down. Margaret didn't smile. "Hope you like it here. It's a close-knit neighborhood." Something about the way she said it, like a warning rather than a welcome, unsettled Samantha. But she brushed it off. Perhaps Margaret was just protective of her space. For the most part, things went smoothly. Samantha worked remotely as an IT consultant, spending long hours in front of screen. Having reliable Wi-Fi was non-negotiable, so she set up her router, secured the network, and got back to business. A week later, she started noticing something strange. The internet felt slower than usual. At first, she blamed it on the service provider, but the issue persisted. Random disconnects, buffering during video calls. It didn't make sense. One evening, after an especially frustrating drop in connection, Samantha decided to check her router settings. She wasn't expecting anything unusual, but then she saw it. An unknown device connected to her network. She frowned, clicking on the details. The device had been active for weeks. A chill ran through her. This wasn't just a neighbor accidentally latching on her Wi-Fi. Someone had been using her internet without permission. Samantha clenched her jaw. Not on her watch. She changed the password immediately, ensuring everything was locked down with a stronger encryption. That should have been the end of it. But just 15 minutes later, flashing red and blue lights appeared in her driveway. A firm knock at the door followed. Samantha exhaled sharply, setting her laptop aside before making her way to the front. When she opened it, 2 uniformed officers stood on her porch. Their faces were unreadable, but their presence alone sent a wave of irritation through her. "Ma'am, we received a report about suspicious cyber activity coming from this residence," the taller officer said. Samantha frowned. "Excuse me." The second officer, a stockier man with a notepad, glanced down at his notes. "Your neighbor, Mrs. Hollis, called 911. Said someone in this house was trying to hack into private networks." Samantha's lips parted in disbelief. "Margaret." She glanced past the officers, and sure enough, Margaret was standing on her porch, arms crossed, eyes narrowed, watching. Samantha folded her arms. "Let me get this straight. I changed my own Wi-Fi password, and my neighbor called the cops." The taller officer shifted uncomfortably. "Well, ma'am, she claimed she got a notification that her network was being compromised right after your password change." Samantha let out a humorless laugh. "That's ridiculous." Margaret stepped forward, inserting herself into the conversation. "I knew something was off the second my Wi-Fi went down," she said, voice sharp with accusation. "Samantha," she spat her name like it was venom, "has been doing something suspicious. It's not normal." Samantha's hands clenched into fists. "I work in IT," she snapped. "I changed my password because someone was connected to my network without permission." Margaret scoffed. "Oh, please. I have security alerts. I know what I saw." The second officer cut in before Samantha could fire back. "Look, we just need to confirm there's no illegal activity. Do you mind showing us your network settings?" Samantha could feel the rage bubbling in her chest. This entire situation was absurd, but she knew how this worked. Refusing would only escalate things. She stepped aside. "Fine. Come." The officers followed her to the living room, where she pulled up her router's settings. "See," she said, pointing to the unfamiliar device still listed on her network. "That's not mine." That's why I changed my password. The taller officer leaned in, scanning the screen. Something shifted in his expression. You're saying someone else was using your Wi-Fi? Samantha's patience snapped. Yes, that's what I've been trying to tell you. Margaret let out a dramatic huff. Oh, come on. She's just saying that now because she got caught. The officers exchanged a look, one that made it clear they weren't buying Margaret's hysteria. The stockier officer turned back to Samantha. Do you have any way of knowing where that connection was coming from? Samantha's lips curled into a slow, knowing smile. Oh, I do. She focused on her laptop, fingers moving quickly across the keyboard. You see this? She pointed at the screen, highlighting the suspicious device's IP address. Every internet-connected device leaves a trace. And this one, it's been connected for weeks. The taller officer squinted. And you can pinpoint where it's coming from? Samantha nodded. Give me a second. She launched a tool to track the approximate location of the IP. The results loaded in seconds. Her stomach tightened as the numbers settled on an address. She turned the laptop around, letting the officers read it for themselves. It was coming from Margaret's house. Silence filled the room. The officers stiffened, their neutral expressions replaced by something closer to realization. Margaret's face, however, went from smug to frozen. That's not possible, Margaret blurted out, shaking her head. That's a mistake. Samantha tilted her head. You sure? Because it looks like you were the one stealing my internet. And not just that, someone from your house has been accessing private information. Emails, data, transfers, even my security cameras. The officer's eyes snapped back to Margaret. That true, ma'am? The stockier officer asked. Margaret's face turned red. I don't know anything about that. Maybe someone hacked me. Samantha let out a slow breath, forcing herself to stay calm. Then why did you call the police the second I changed my password? Margaret's mouth opened, then closed. She had nothing. The taller officer cleared his throat, his stance shifting. Mrs. Hollis, we're going to need to ask you some questions. Margaret took a step back. This is ridiculous. I'm the victim here. You saw the alert on my phone. Samantha almost laughed. Margaret, you know how easy it is to set up fake alerts. If you really thought you were being hacked, you call your internet provider. But no, you called 911 on me. The officers didn't look convinced. And what happened next would uncover something far worse than stolen Wi-Fi.